Hello, beautiful friends. We meet once again, and it is time for our August readings. These are essential messages, and it's important that I'm doing the work this way because I am not interested in prescribing your month ahead for you. I want to keep these conversations open and curious and just spark some curious reflection as you move into the month rather than kind of filling your head with a whole bunch of images and expectations that kind of mess with your own version of how you're living your life. I think it's so important that we pique our curiosity and we work with archetypes in a way that keeps things open and flowing. And that's a big goal that I have here with shifting the format of the monthly readings and trying out some different things. I'm also going to be honest, August is my birthday month. I am moving into a new year of my life. I'm going through a big transitional year in my life where there has been a lot of healing and a lot of facing old core beliefs and things that have haunted me my whole life. And along with that, I'm really committed to not self-abandoning anymore. And, sometimes in the longing to maintain the status quo, like continue to do the readings the way I did for 5 years in a row, every single month, and just keeping things the same, we can end up abandoning ourselves. And I feel like I was starting to abandon myself. I was starting to ignore how I was changing and growing. And so in doing the readings this way, I'm honoring that I am changing. And the deeper I've worked with these archetypes, the deeper I've worked with this energy over all of these years, the more I've come to understand it in a very different way than when I started out. And I'm working with it in new and different ways than I would have worked with it in 2018 or 2019. And I think that's such a crucial thing. We should be evolving with the way that we explore. And so it's really important for me that I didn't just keep doing the same thing. And I'm so grateful for those of you who are on the journey with me to see where this takes us. And that kind of leads me into a couple big things that I noticed about the energy of August. There's going to be a lot of fixed sign energy getting lit up here as we move through Leo season, the sun moving through Leo season, as well as Saturn over in Aquarius and a full moon over in Aquarius. And this is going to be highlighting for us during the Leo season of August where we have our claws, we have our little lion claws stuck in an old version of the story that we feel like we have to keep holding on to and playing out over and over again, as well as those of us who have our claws stuck in the way we think things should be. That other version of the world, we're so frustrated that the things are the way that they are and they're not the way that we think they should be. This month is really going to challenge us to release a little bit of our grip on that concept of either keeping ourselves the same in the same format. Fixed sign energy can sometimes overstay its time in a certain form, in a certain format, in a certain way. And so it's going to challenge us to look at where we are still clinging on to who we think we need to be, or to the version of the story that we think we should be living. And in order to do that, we've got to relax a little bit. And also in doing this, and hopefully in all the readings that are up ahead, and we're going to pull some tarot cards and we're going to explore, this is going to help us expand our vision to allow for some other variables and some other information to come in. So that's going to be a core of August's meanderings and wanderings in this life. So I'm really excited to get into it with all of you. I hope you enjoy. And if you are looking to connect with me more and hang out and have a little more community, I'd love to see you over on my Patreon, which is where I'm able to hang out every single week and provide a little bit more in-depth and detail. So I will leave that link below. But in the meantime, let's get into August's readings. Hello, Aries. Welcome to August, and a time of year that I think is really beautiful for Aries as the sun moves through Leo, Venus moves through Leo. We also have a lot of energy kind of sextiling with you and playing with you. The full moon in Aquarius, Saturn in Aquarius, even Mars moving into Gemini. So there's a lot of flow at work here with you during this first part of Leo season. And I think that's going to be really, really beautiful. The other big thing I think right now is that Chiron recently went retrograde in your sign. And this has been going on for a few years now. We've been doing this rhythmic dance with Aries for a little while. But when Chiron retrogrades in your sign, this is a really big time, I think, to think about how you're using your sacred fire. And this is a topic that comes up a lot when I'm working with Aries energy. How you use your sacred fire initiatory energy. If you are noticing that you are having defenses up, you could be having arguments in your own head, imaginary arguments with somebody you disagree with, or having, kind of replays of places where you've been hurt and you put on your armor. One of the big themes you're going to be noticing this August is going to be asking you if you want to keep using your energy in stoking those fires, stoking the defenses fires, stoking the armor fires, stoking the combative fires that I think, are the ones that are going on within are the ones we're really talking about here. And of course, those can manifest without as well if we are in it enough. So one of the big things that is going to be a reminder to you all of August, and a card decided to pop out, Ace of Wands, hello, is going to be to redirect. When you want to put a lot of energy and you find yourself mulling over something in the back of your mind throughout the afternoon or what have you, this month is going to be a lot about instead using that energy to focus on the Ace of Wands, the new beginnings, because once again, the sun moving through Leo, Venus moving through Leo, this is creative energy. This is playful energy. This is romantic energy. It's energy that's much more curious about what happens if we do something unfamiliar, which can be a little scary for our animal bodies and for our amygdala, which wants to keep us safe and keep us in the familiar. But it can also be very liberating to our energy. And Six of Swords. Okay, let's look at these two cards. Because here's the deal. It's kind of the ultimate agreement of the nature of things in life. Because Ace of Wands is a new beginning. And every time I see an ace, I love the symbolism of aces because it reminds me of intrinsically whenever you get an ace that you've just been through perhaps a life cycle that felt maybe confusing, or a life cycle just wrapped up. You don't really know what's next. There's a phase of kind of not knowing that happens. And then the Ace of Wands here is kind of like that friendly signal, that friendly open door, that friendly clue that's saying, hey, over here, I've got something really good for you. That is starting to come in. So I think the Ace of Wands for me is helping you get out of some of the murk or the uncertainty, right? And begin some new things, a lot of new beginnings happening here. And it's a beautiful time of year for that. But the agreement is always that in following what's really truly feeling right, we're going to have to leave behind something that maybe is a little scary to leave behind, but you also feel ready to leave behind. So Aries, this is an interesting time of kind of reflecting on if there's something that's a little scary to leave behind, a routine, an identity, a creative project, a location, a mental habit, any form of this. Take some time to meditate on that and think about why you feel you're not allowed to change, why you feel like you have to keep harnessing your energy in the same cycles. And, I think a great way to do that as well, the other side of this, is to remember to play. Ace of Wands is very playful. So sometimes doing a lot of prototyping, writing up all your ideas on Post-it notes and putting them all together in new ways can be a really fun way to proactively play with how you're changing and growing, and not just reflecting on what you have to leave behind. Sometimes I think in thinking about what we're quitting, it can feel a little empty, whereas what we're going toward can really light up our heart chakras. So I hope you have a beautiful August, and I will see you for our next round of readings. Hello, Taurus. So this month, Mars and Uranus are meeting up in your sign. That's a pretty powerful dynamic duo. And of course, they're crossing paths with the North Node in your sign. So there's some impactful energy moving through, to say the least. And I know that Taurus has kind of been on a big journey with this Uranian energy for several years now, really. Since really 2018, this cycle started to begin. So we're 4 or 5 years in, 4 years in, to you getting really shaken up and doing a lot of changing. And so I think it's really interesting here with the Mars, North Node, Uranus conversations that'll be going on in the coming weeks, because it's kind of like being able to see clearly how much you've changed, being able to see your path clearly, being able to see how you've moved and why that's mattered, and illuminating why it's important to keep going. I think sometimes in the path of a lot of change and a lot of evolution, there are just times you just want to stop. You just want to I'm way too deep into this now. And it's kind of the false low of the hero's journey, where it feels like, wasn't it just better before I started all this change? So this is a time where it's a reminder of why it matters to keep going. And there's going to be a lot of reminders and nudges about that. And then as we move in, we're moving through also Leo season, which is squaring you and challenging you to look at things from fresh perspectives and to rebalance what you think, how you feel you have to perform both in the private and in the public eye. And really challenge where you feel like you have to play specific roles, be a specific person. Those questions are going to be coming up this month. And finally, the thing I noticed is that as we move into Virgo season around the 22nd of the month, there's a level of honesty. Four of Swords, rest, integration, understanding. There is going to be an urge to be really honest. So the question that came up for me, Taurus, was, what would you finally like to say out loud that you haven't said out loud? And this can be to yourself. A lot of times there are things we don't want to say out loud to ourselves. It's a little scary. Or to somebody else. Oh, the Tower. This card. Oh, it's so funny. Speaking of truth, I think this card is about honesty, actually. It topples anything that is untrue, that's pretending to be a foundation underneath us. And I think what a combo. One of the most restful, reflective integration cards, and one of the most active, kind of vibrant, awake cards. But I think the Tower also speaks to that Uranus energy, the Mars energy, the North Node energy, highlighting how you have changed and how your road has changed. And in fact, I almost feel like this figure here is almost resting and dreaming and integrating what is going on here in the Tower, right? It's almost like you cannot integrate this without taking moments to integrate this, if you know what I mean, like the path leading up to now. So thinking about the last 3 or 4 years, thinking about how that has changed and transformed you, allowing it to coalesce and clarify in your subconscious, in your unconscious, allowing your neural networks to do the work of incorporating this is really important. I would also say with these cards, this is about a level of honesty coming up in you about something. It can, and honesty looks a lot of different ways. It can be an honesty about a project you're working on and realizing it's not giving you the joy you want, or you want to take it in a completely different direction. It can be honesty about a boundary you want to set. It can be honesty with yourself about the rest levels you need, the boundaries you need with yourself. It can be honesty about the things you actually want to do that you've been longing to do, but you haven't felt like you're allowed to do it. So the Tower for me is also about the honesty that comes up when we sit quietly. And yeah, it can feel like it's going to make a mess of our lives, or like it's going to make things worse. But honesty and truth is always going to help us live more peacefully. So it's really important, Taurus, that you own how you've changed and you let yourself be honest about that. And like I said, the big question is, what would you like to finally say out loud? So explore that this month, see how it's feeling. Don't get freaked out by the tower, by the way. Our culture's so scared of truth and seeing clearly and letting things transform. And none of us were really given the tools to embody that and move through it. So just know you're all good. It's going to be fine. It's just a time of integration, honesty, and truth for you. So I'm very curious to see how this month will feel in the coming weeks. Gemini. So Leo season intends to be quite a harmonious flow with Gemini energy. It helps with creativity, playfulness, and kind of allowing your voice to get a little bit of clarity and an ability to share and express in heightened ways. So the Sun and Venus moving through there is going to be really great for you. The full moon in Aquarius is very big vision energy. And then we have Mars entering your sign this month near the end of Leo season. And this is kind of the big moment for Gemini, because as Mars moves into your sign, this is very vibrant, let's get in there and try things and do things energy. And in general, this month, there's a lot of that kind of eager energetics at work that are really just ready to try things out. Now, here's what's really interesting, I think, in this process. The big question that came through for me is, what have you been holding yourself back from trying or letting go of? I think when there's this eager energy and it's been building for a little while, sometimes, and I'm not saying this for everybody, but sometimes we can have a little resistance to it almost. We can almost feel a little unworthy of its presence in our lives and how it wants to move through. And we can initially have a bit of this pullback, holding ourselves back from it, holding ourselves back from what it is that really wants to get started. And I feel like initiating things can sometimes feel a little intimidating. So a big part of the energetics of August for Gemini is going to be about kind of getting into the initiating part of it, which is like 50% of the whole process, just opening those doors and just kind of asking yourself, do you feel worthy of beginning stuff? Do you feel like you're allowed to open those new doors? Do you feel like you're allowed to use that energy in the way that it is longing to be used? And to explore that a little bit. 2 cards popped out together. So let's see what they are. The Queen of Cups and the Chariot. These are such watery energies, actually very intuitive wisdom, which is really interesting because we're not working with a ton of water energy during the month of August. But these cards have to do with intuition and vision. The Queen of Cups, of course, is going to be more meditative. And what's interesting about the Queen of Cups is the beautiful side of her, the functional side of her, is that she's connected into her emotional field and she is tapped into her intuition. The shadow side of Queen of Cups is when we spend too long meditating. We spend too long staring into this thing and thinking about the idea and mulling it over and feeling the urges and doing nothing. And so when the Queen of Cups shows up, it's a reminder that yes, tapping into our intuition, tapping into our knowing is an essential ingredient, but then there needs to be the follow-up of action, which is Chariot. Chariot is, when you think about a chariot, it's a very forward-focused vehicle. It's not very good at turning, notoriously horrible at turning, but it is very good at going forward. And so the Chariot energy is the initiator, actually. This is a tied to the archetype of Cancer. But the Chariot is about initiating, beginning, and committing to something. So what I see here with this watery energy is it's bringing something out of the field of the hidden, our internal worlds, the intuitive knowing, something that we've kind of known for a while, and bringing it into action in the world. And this can feel intimidating. Like I said, there can be resistance, there can be unworthiness, there can be like a pullback almost from it when it feels like it's just too much to begin. But I would really urge you this month, Gemini, to just kind of ask some questions, pose some questions to yourself about why you feel like you're not allowed to begin, why you feel like you're not allowed to express or share or do whatever it is that's kind of culminating inside of yourself, and just get curious about that. And then I'd also highly recommend just try some things. Just get started, even in the smallest broken down piece. Sometimes we just got to start with the tiniest little initiatory step, but there's energy that's waiting to be expressed. You're going to be seeing that with Mars's entrance into your sign. You're going to be feeling that with Leo's energy kind of tugging at you and playing with you. And you're even going to be feeling that at the beginning of Virgo season, as we work through a Virgo new moon, that's squaring you and challenging you to get in there and try some things out. So there's a lot of itchy, eager energy, I think, awaiting you this month, and that can be a really good thing. So I hope you have a great time exploring. Hello, beautiful Cancer hearts. I am, as always, so happy to sit with your energy. And Leo season as the follow-up to Cancer season, I think there's a really interesting interplay between these two energies. And for you all, this is a time of year, and with the energy of Venus and the sun moving through your neighboring sign of Leo, for you to really affirm your presence here in the physical world, that you're allowed to be here. And in fact, for me, the crucial part of this Leo season for Cancer is going to be not needing to optimize yourself into a version of yourself that you think you need it to be in order to be in this world. Like letting go of optimization, letting go of needing to improve yourself into a different form that will fit better into whatever you think you need to fit into in this world. That's going to be a crucial aspect of this season. In fact, like Mars is going to be moving into your 12th house, which is really going to be sparking, I think, some questions about how you welcome and really affirm and own, your gifts, your sensitivities, all of that. The full moon in Aquarius this month as well is going to be challenging you to step into how you have changed. But I think along with that, also sometimes making peace with the fact that we don't have to optimize and improve and change certain aspects of ourselves. Of course, we can all learn and grow, but I think our culture, so I think even just being a seeker and somebody who is curious, it's like we can get into this headspace where we need to be more healed. We need to be more, in tune. We need to be more proactive, whatever it is. This month, just letting that go. What comes from doing that is going to be the big question. And then as we move into Virgo season, the energy is going to be a little bit more in flow with you, a little bit more in tune and curious with the Virgo new moon and the sun moving through there. And I think that will help you kind of coalesce some new ideas, but only, I think, if you give yourself this time, the first 3 weeks of this month, to let go of optimization and see what's flowing through from there. So I'm really excited to see how that goes for you. The Tower came up. This card is kind of showing up a little bit in August, which I think is really interesting. We have such a resistance to certain cards, I think, in culture. There's like the scary cards, 5 of Cups and the Tower. And because they kind of denote change, they denote something beyond our control. And the Hierophant, very interesting. And I think, of course, it's natural to kind of be like, I want things to just be peaceful. But for me, the Tower is about honesty. It's about letting ourselves transform. It's about looking at our foundations as well. And that's actually what comes up when I see these two cards. It's two versions of foundations. One foundation with the Tower kind of shows where foundations are shaky. So where we are maybe on the surface, it looks like we're doing this thing and it's going really well, but underneath we hate it. And it's we're just forcing ourselves to slog through it and pretend and do whatever, and that foundation is shaky, right? And we've all been there. I think all of us have forced our way through some project, right? Or some aspect of our lives. And it has felt shaky and it has felt exhausting and it has felt draining. And at some point, something has to shift with it, right? So that's one version of a foundation. And there's nothing to judge here. It's just something to look at, right? And then we have the Hierophant. Now, the Hierophant sometimes is associated with the establishment, and there could be a message here with the Tower and the establishment getting a rearrange. And I think this works also for our interior world. The other way you can look at this is the Hierophant is also coronating ourselves as our own spiritual leader and really affirming our presence here. So, and not feeling like we have to second guess that constantly over and over and over again. And that is a version of foundation that is very strong. So you can kind of look at this in two ways. Either that there's a status quo that needs to be challenged and rewritten, or that some things are having a weaker foundation right now and you're noticing that they're wanting to kind of move away, and some things are getting a deeper foundation and are wanting to be built into and owned. So there are a few interpretations here, and I'm sure you're going to be getting your own intuitive hit when you see these images. Just know that this doesn't always have to be about cataclysmic events. A lot of times this is about an honesty that goes on within, which can be a little intimidating initially, but also I think so liberating. So I'm really curious to see what thoughts and questions come up for Cancerian wisdom this August. Happy birthday, happy Leo season to my fellow Leos out there. It's my birthday month, and I'm sure it's many of your birthday months as well. And this Leo season, we are getting some challenges. And I don't mean that in a practical way. I mean that we are being asked. There's a lot of energy moving through Taurus, our fellow fixed sign. We've got North Node, we've got Uranus, we've got Mars. That squaring off with Leo energy. And then we also have Saturn opposing the Leo sun, as well as an Aquarius full moon opposing the Leo sun. So we have some challengers here. We have our fellow teammates in all fixed signs this year are going through a reassessment during Leo season and getting fresh perspective and fresh lenses. And this is really important. So that's the big thing for Leos this month, and is to really, really, and I mean really, this sounds like such a basic thing, look at our lives with fresh eyes and fresh perspective. We've got to kind of step up and out of our timeline and really look at the ingredients. Really take a moment to acknowledge the ingredients that want to come in, as well as what we've already done this year, as well as what has already coalesced and clarified, as well as understanding our journey more deeply over the last couple of years. Some of the items and the storylines and the way that we talk about our journey that have seemed essential are not anymore. And this is good news because it frees up energy. So I think that's really the core of what I'm trying to get to. And let me start shuffling the cards. Is that we probably unwittingly are using some of our fuel and our energy and our firepower to fuel certain storylines, certain repetitive thoughts, and even certain like parameters for what we think of as goal points or what we need to accomplish next. Right? And this Leo season is going to be about questioning those, because sometimes we can get really stuck on a storyline of this is what I'm going to be accomplishing, this is who I'm going to be, and there's something else wanting to be at that table. There are other elements that are wanting to be, and they may actually be quite different than the goals and parameters that you have set for yourself at some unknown time. For some of us, we set them when we were like 20. For some of us, maybe we set them at the beginning of the year. Two cards wanted to come out. Let's see what they are. We've got the Ace of Wands and the King of Pentacles. Very interesting combo, very dynamic duo. So this is going to be about getting open again. And like I said, seeing with fresh eyes, stepping out of ourselves a little bit in order to see the path from the perspective of maybe a friend who loves us, or from our angels who love us, or, however you want to do that perspective shifting. Have fun visualizing it. But what are you allowed to reconsider, even just a tiny little bit, when it comes to the parameters and the guidelines you've set yourself? Because Leos, we all know that there's a lot of high standards and a lot of high stakes that go into being a Leo. And it's sometimes very demanding, but mostly inside of our own minds. And it's important, I think, we loosen our grip on that a little bit this month. So let's look at these, because we've got two things going on here. We have the Ace of Wands. This means that there is a page turning in the book, right? There is a life cycle that maybe has been kind of slowly closing out. And the life cycles can kind of be subtle that way too. They don't always present as clear, distinct entities. And the Ace of Wands is coming in here as a reminder that something's closing out and something new is beginning. New inspirations are striking. But we are going to need to be able to see, we're going to have our vision open enough to see Ace of Wands, because Aces of Wands come through a lot in life. Aces in general come through in life a lot. It's a very ever-renewing, curious, playful, kind of elf-like energy that is very playful. Our access to it just varies depending on if we are open to it or not. And that, we don't need to judge when we're not open to aces. Sometimes we're not in the mood. And believe me, that is more than okay. We don't need to be constantly open optimization ace machines. Forget it. But, when it's feeling in concert with us, we have to have our vision open in order to see those aces. So we're going to want to expand a little bit to be able to see that. Now, the King of Pentacles, this is long-term vision. This is very grounded, practical energy. But this is also about, for me, whenever I see King of Pentacles, I think about seeds that we're planting, right? That are going to take a little time for all these vines to grow and that experience to swell into something really of meaning. But we've got to have enough faith in ourselves, enough faith in these sparks that are showing up to know that we're playing with something that is long range. We're playing with something that over the next few years is going to come into its full maturity. So we have to relax a little bit and understand that things are going to take time, and we aren't going to understand all the elements that are coming in this August for a little bit. And that's okay. It's okay to not know what every single element is doing for us in real time. Often we won't get the full story until we look back. So those are the reminders to keep in mind here as we move through Leo season. And also, as we move into Virgo season and as our season closes out, I think it's important to remember too, to really take time to value yourself and value your presence and affirm your presence here in the world. And doing that in a really honest, authentic way, and affirming how you've changed and grown as well. So I hope you have a beautiful Leo season. Happy birthday once again, and we will meet very, very soon for our next chat. Hello, beautiful Virgos. Happy Virgo season once we get to the later part of August, and I'm so excited to do our Virgo season chat in a few weeks. That's going to be so much fun to really get into it. But for right now, let's focus on the fact that the first 3 weeks of August in Leo season, as we have energy moving through there, is a special time of year for Virgo energy. This is a sacred time for me of aligning and paying attention to the hidden. And a lot of times the way things will roll in around this time, right, as we're gearing up for Virgo season, is noticing the clues from unexpected places, noticing the hints and nudges from places we normally don't put our focus. Our brains are very good at helping us focus on the familiar and what we're used to seeing and skipping out on a lot of the details around us. So that's going to be crucial for Leo season, I think, is just keep your eyes, heart, mind open to the nudges coming from places you're not even looking, and just kind of make a game of it. It's a bit of a scavenger hunt to just kind of places you wouldn't normally look for the solution or you wouldn't normally look for the inspiration. Just kind of like be like, what's over there? That's going to be a really great way to utilize this Leo season. This full moon in Aquarius, that's going to be asking you to kind of step outside of your usual routines and habits when it comes to how you're visualizing your path. The other note that came up, and this I think is important as we step more and more into your season, as we have energy start to flow more and more into Virgo. And I mean, I think at the beginning of this month, I'm looking at my notes right here, Mercury is in your sign. You're home with your ruling sign starting on August 3rd. So there's a lot of creative percolating of ideas and things like that. But once we really get to the end and we start to have Virgo season happening, here's the other thing that came up for me. The pace is not important. How quickly you are, I don't know, accomplishing something or becoming something or what have you is not going to be important at all. Take that off the table for the rest of this year. The intent and the direction is going to be essential. So I think this is such a great, and as a Virgo moon, I really like this reframe because I'm often wanting to get it done and like do it well and be on it and feel like there's this mythical pace that I need to be moving at in order to be on time to something. I don't know. But when I think about the intent and the direction I'm putting my energy, I feel a lot freer and I feel a lot more like I have a quality of energy that shows up more deeply. And I think could just be like the anthem for Virgo season coming up. Six of Swords. I love that card. So those are kind of the two things I really noticed as we were moving through this season of the year. Also, just keep in mind, we've got Mars, Uranus, and the North Node over in your fellow Earth sign of Taurus, meeting up, conversing this month, and that's big vision energy. So we're going to be pulling our lens a little bit out during Leo season, especially. Two more cards wanted to come out. Page of Cups and Ace of Pentacles. Okay. So we're going to be noticing too during Leo season that along with that kind of being open and seeing hints and nudges from unexpected places and like looking for answers in places we don't normally look for them, I think the energy over in Taurus is also going to be challenging Virgo to think outside the box a little bit and really explore. And then, like I said, once we get into Virgo season, we're going to be looking at the direction we want to take our energy, sitting with that new moon in Virgo and exploring it. But we'll get into that as we move into Virgo season. So, Six of Swords right away. Something's getting left behind. Now, this card I think can be very subtle because this is a swords card, which is all about our mental process. So yes, sometimes physically we're leaving something behind. We're ready to go. But I find that a lot of times Six of Swords is about deciding we're going to leave behind a way we talk to ourselves, a way we envision ourselves, the way we tell our stories, and the way we organize our thoughts and our routines. So it's time to leave behind a certain way of treating yourself. Full stop. And get really serious about it, which is always kind of a paradox because it's like, get serious about feeling loving towards yourself, you know? But there's a message here because there's some beautiful things wanting to come in. Page of Cups, Ace of Pentacles, are you kidding? These are messengers of opportunities, and when I say opportunities, I don't know, like sometimes that word, you know, I feel like it's been really taken to mean like, I don't know, just like some movie where you get like a job promotion or like, I don't know. For me, when I think about the word opportunity, I think about these hands, these offerings that are offered up to us emotionally, practically. These are little gems that we're given, little boosts, little places of like loving energy that move through, and they move through as creative ideas. They move through as a cup of tea. They move through as a friend remembering and texting us and feeling loved. They move through in a very important way, I think, that the more we pay attention to, the more they lead us on the path they're trying to kind of lure us to. And these are almost like little guiding posts. They're like little lighthouses. So I like that image of being kind of you're on your boat, you're on your lake, you're on your sea, and there's these little lighthouses all along the way. and they're flickering and they're blinking and they want you. They want to help you and guide you. So look for the lighthouses all month and make a game of it. Have fun with it and see where it's trying to direct you, and have that conversation with the creative field. See where it takes you. I'm curious to see where it takes all of us. I love you guys. Hello, beautiful Librans. I like this time of year for you a lot. I think the energy of this time of year there's something about it that just feels right. We have, of course, Leo season, which is sextiling with you and bringing about a lot of, I think, playful energy with the sun and Venus moving through there and giving a lot of flirtation and romance. And the Aquarius full moon this month is really going to highlight like your creative romantic side. And I think that's a really natural part of Libran energy, is just that creative, flowing, playful, flirtatious side that lights up and is so beautiful when it's feeling really, really loved and supported. We also have energy like Mars moving into Gemini, which is flowing with you as well and really lighting up your big vision. So there's a lot of placements during Leo season where you're going to be noticing there's a lot of play and an ease to creative ideas. Then as energy starts to move through Virgo, the end of the month, we're getting into the lead up to Libra season already. I can't believe it. But we're getting into that energy right before your sign. And this means that there's a lot of hidden clues as well moving through the fabric of August for you. And the message that came up for Librans, and I really liked this message just for some reason makes me feel cozy, is that all that is ahead of you is not known. Even if you think you know the parameters of what's ahead of you, the end of this year, the beginning of next year, you don't. And I don't mean that in a scary way. I mean, of course, none of us actually do know. Even if we are very intuitive, quite psychic, can feel out some themes and materials that want to come in, we don't really know. We're not in charge of that. We don't need to know. But I think what I mean when I say that is that there are elements that are wanting to come in and work with you that you haven't seen yet. And you're going to be just tapping into the mystery of that a little bit as we start into the second half of this month and into the end of August and into September, honestly. So what I would say about this month and this energy is take some time to explore this hidden world of elements that want to come in. And I don't want you to get too tight about this where you're like, I'm going to figure out what the elements are and I'm going to hyper focus and I'm going to like constantly check my cards and meditate and, try and see it. You want to get relaxed about this kind of not known, the unknown. The only way to see it is it's kind of like with those 3D vision posters that you used to have back in the 90s, or it's like about relaxing your vision till you're like everything's a little blurred out and then seeing what pops up. So the practice is really about getting a little more relaxed. 5 of Cups showed up. I love that card. I'll tell you why in just a moment. All that is ahead of you is not known, even if you think you know the whole story. And 10 of Swords. Okay, Libra. Endings and release. It's really interesting that these cards came up. And I'm not even BSing when I say that I love these energies so much. For me, this is the creative field. This is the process of seeing something with fresh eyes. So some of you may feel like you have lost a version of yourself, a version of the world this year over the course of these months. If you've been changing and growing a lot, even in positive ways, these energies of kind of a loss of the way the world used to work can still be very, very present. I think these energies are core to life, and the less we resist them just being ever present, the more they are our friends and our companions. But there are times when these energies feel a little bit more present, where we are processing how we have changed. Now, within that, I think the message of not knowing the elements that are coming in, it's a reminder that if you are grieving or processing, if you are feeling a little confused, overwhelmed by how you've changed, how the world's changed, where to go next, sometimes when we're in this, one thing I will say is that it will feel like this is all there is. That we will just be grieving, we will just be in the in-between, we will just be letting go. And it will feel like this is reality. This is all of reality. And I think that message about you don't know what's coming next is really important here. And the more that we relax into this and love ourselves through anything that is coming up, that's challenging us, that is asking us to change form, the more that actually those clues want to come to the surface. I find so much peace in these energies because they do recognize our ever-changing forms all throughout life. And isn't that such a relief to not have to deny that to ourselves 24/7? I think this is going to be a beautiful month, but only if you are willing to, be with yourself and get curious about the creative field ahead. I love you all so much. Hello, beautiful Scorpio friends. We are in a really interesting time of year for Scorpio. And I'm just going to say it right up front. I mean, basically all the fixed signs are getting lit up during the month of August. So it's Leo season. We got Sun, Venus moving through there. We have a full moon in Aquarius. So both of those things are going to be squaring you. And then right across from you over in Taurus, we have the North Node, Uranus, and Mars moving through and conversing. So all the fixed signs are getting lit up, and you're not actually, just all the other ones. And so they're squaring and opposing you. And here's the message that came through with that. You know me, I'm not into big drama. This is nothing scary about this. It's not that your life's going to be super hard this month. These are challenging, old, repetitive patterns. And I think this applies to both epigenetic stuff, if you're into that, the way that trauma gets handed down through generations, as well as how we have our own routines in our lives and the way we talk to ourselves. And I really mean that not in the kind of social media morning routine, kind of like, what's your morning routine? Is it good enough? I don't care about that. I care about the routines that we have for how we walk ourselves through the houses in our minds. And so, I mean, this gets down to like really for me, the crux of moving through this life. It's the climax of the hero's journey, right? When we face into the antagonist, the haunted houses, the pain points, the shame points, the epigenetic trauma from past generations. So, and I know Scorps are ready to get down into the depths. And a lot of you probably are already doing this work because it's not just something that's going to happen in Leo season and then we're done, right? But what I like about this month is that with these kind of challenging energies, it's like a turning point. It opens something up. That little bit of pressure opens something up. And then there is this creative process that starts to happen, where we're creating new cycles, new neural pathways. There's a creative process going on for Scorpio that I'm really, really loving here. And it is an aha moment. It is a breakthrough. It is kind of like facing straight into a place of shame or grief or confusion or what have you, hypervigilance, that is allowing something to clarify and come together and be released. So that's exciting to me. Those are some of the best experiences, are those moments when something just coalesces and we're like, yes, I see. 2 cards wanted to come out. 8 of Cups and the Hierophant. Quite the combo. 8 of Cups. Leaving the party when it is the right time for you. That's always how I think about this card. It's like there's a party going on and other people are still having fun at that party. Other people are feeling good, but you're kind of done. You know, your spirit is talking to you and it's like, hey, I need to go do something differently. I need to go recharge. I need to go reconnect with myself. It's just time. And that's that moment, you know, where it's like you could stay. You could keep doing it the same way. You could kind of leave the status quo. You literally could, and it would be okay. But you know, like it will just keep itching at you that you're ready to go do something different. And this might apply to you in a very literal, real way with a project or a situation or a party even. But I also think that this Eight of Cups kind of represents also when we're ready to leave behind those old circuits, right? Those old spirals and go somewhere else. So this to me is the adventurer, the explorer. This is some of the most courageous energy that we have available to us because it's knowing we can just stay. And also knowing we have to have the courage to go see what else is out there. Now that's paired with the Hierophant, a card that has to do with about stability and tradition. And that can be both good and bad, right? Like this can be about building a very solid foundation for yourself and really owning your position in your own life and your ability to be with spirit and to feel really, really strong and committed and connected to that. This could also be, you know, at a time when you're leaving behind old circuits, a time of challenging old authority, old routine, old habits. So there's a couple of ways that this is coming across. For me, it's like we have to leave behind the shadow side of the Hierophant in order to go towards the grounded, centered Hierophant of the knowing, of the repeating that we are okay right here, right now in this present moment. So there's a cycle going on here and it's a big one. It's some of my favorite stuff to work with. And I think something that I'm also going through in my life. So it's cool to see those themes coming up for Scorpio as well. But we always have this weird symbiosis, me and Scorpio. I have a lot of energy in Scorpio actually. So I hope you have a beautiful August and we'll see where the journey away from the old party takes you. Sagittarius friends, as always, oh, it's so good to be with my people and to explore themes together with you. So one thing I'm noticing with all the fire signs this month is this kind of core question, I think, as we move through Leo season of how we want to use our fire energy. How we want to use that creative spark and spirit that is just a part of our innate journey through this life in a way that is meaningful. I think this is a question fire signs ask themselves all the time. And Sages, you know, you get teased all the time for having like 100 plates spinning and feeling spread too thin and not knowing which direction. That's like the classic teasing of Sagittarian energy. And as a Sag rising, I relate. I always have like 100 projects going on. I never know what to do, but we're going to get to this point because, okay, Leo season is going to be great for you all. This is really wonderful for naturally like kind of helping you zoom out and see, you know, how you're philosophizing about your life, how you're wanting to kind of project the big picture and how you're kind of thinking about your value and your place in the world in the larger context and fabric of everything. So very creative, playful, big vision energy. The other interesting thing that I noticed that's happening this month, though, is that Mars is going to move into Gemini this month. And let's see, when does that happen? The 20th. And then right after that, we have Virgo season, right? Squaring you. So Sun's moving through there. There's going to be some squaring action pushing on you a little bit with Mars opposing you a little bit. And this is really interesting for me because what this ends up doing as Mars moves through Gemini is going to be asking you about how you're spreading out your firepower. Is it working for you? And I mean, really asking that question because you don't even need to be having 100 plates spinning. You might have 2. But the way that you're going about it, the way you're scheduling yourself, the way you're utilizing your energy, is it working for you? And I mean, I'm honestly asking that. That's like an honest question. I think sometimes we don't take the time to just ask ourselves. Is it giving you the space you need so that you can take the steps and the action and feel the vibrancy and the momentum behind you? So this is it really is a reassessment time for all fire signs, like I said, about really looking at, sometimes it's amazing where fire signs will light a fire and then use their heat and their oxygen and their fuel to keep it going. And we're including things like repetitive thoughts that are really painful, rescheduling that coffee meetup that is tiring, just weird things, that we'll end up just keep doing because we're like, oh, but it's fun. It's a fire. Let's go. And this is a really great time to put out some of those fires, not the ones you care about. Not, I'm not asking you to be less creative or less diverse in your interests. I think this sometimes just gets back down to practicality, Saggies. There are fires that you have tended and you keep tending that are using a fuel and energy and are just detracting because they are repetitive thoughts about how you're not doing this or you're not that, or they are old haunted houses. Because the other part of this is that it's really asking for you to get centered and clarify and allow your core energy to move you forward. Not all this dispersed energy that's just kind of floating around, the little flames flickering on the edges of things. Those don't matter. We want to get back to a centeredness. And I think there's just a reminder that sometimes, I think with Sag energy and fire energy in general, there's a fear that if we simplify it back, if we really get back to basics, we're going to miss out. Things are not going to work out. We're going to miss every boat. We're going to miss every opportunity. We aren't doing enough. We have to have enough faith in ourselves to center in and focus and simplify a little bit and let that ride out for a little bit before we start seeing how that's coalescing. So I'll just suggest that. The cards are just not wanting to come out. King of Cups. Hello. That is a very centered energy, very centered intuitive energy. And Hermit. Okay, this is really interesting. It makes me think about how we're going to start moving towards Virgo season at the end of this month. And that's going to be bringing up some new questions for you about the impact and the legacy you want to make. Now, these two energies, I think the key element here is they are centered energies. These are energies that are very quiet and introspective. That doesn't mean you have to have a quiet, introspective August. Doesn't mean you have to go home. Everybody always thinks with the Hermit that it means you have to go home and sit at home and do nothing. No. The Hermit is the internal spiritual seeker. So these two, both the King of Cups and the Hermit, are about a real look at what is glowing at the center and core of your being. And taking the time to let that lead you. Look to your core. What is lit up in there? And just go back to that practice time and again this month. It'll be really interesting to see where that takes you, Saggies, because there are things, there are schedulings, and there are routines that are just, they're not part of that core. So we'll see where it takes us as a group. I'm very curious. Capricorn, I am so intrigued by your energy this month because Leo season has a really interesting relationship to you because this is transformational energy. It does this interesting conversation with you where it's a lot about allowing any grief and transformation to move through your body. So that's the first thing I would say as we move through Leo season. This is a very creative, playful time. But I think also for Capricorn, this is going to be a little bit more about letting all the emotions flow through that maybe have built up over the first part of this year. Just letting it move through, letting it out of your body. And you can do that by shaking, crying, dancing. There's, you all have your own unique ways that you want to do that. So letting stagnant energy move through, move out. And during this season as well, we're going to have this full moon in Aquarius, your neighboring sign. And this is also going to help you look at any places where you may be feeling unworthiness for being here. And asking if you let yourself have the peace of just being here. And just exploring those themes, those topics. And I think this is such a valuable place to just take a moment to breathe. As Virgo season opens up, we're going to have more and more energy moving in there. Of course, this is going to flow a little bit more easily with you and allow for a little bit more breath, a little bit more play, a little bit more expansive thinking, maybe even getting creative about what projects or ideas you have up ahead. I'm really curious to see what will move through for Cappies at that time. So it's a dynamic month for you all, to say the least. Also, I'd like to say we have Mars, Uranus, and the North Node all moving through your other fellow Earth sign of Taurus, highlighting your heart. But that again goes back to letting stagnant energy move through your body, letting it release so that you can be present with the here and now. I can take that advice too, honestly. This has been a really intense year so far, I think, for a lot of us in its own unique way, different from 2020 and 2021. And it's important sometimes just have that little reminder, like we have things that just kind of get gunked up, and it's a really useful time to move things through. Queen of Swords, Queen of Honesty, the Queen of Integrity, the Queen of Clarity. I love Queen of Swords. And the Sun. I like this. I like this combo a lot for Capricorn, because for me, these are very pure energies. And I mean that in the sense that these are not convoluted. We're not about to go down 100 side alleys and back entrances and come up with a whole bunch of complex, explanations for why X is not equal to Z. Like these cards just kind of get to the core right away. One, in speaking the truth to ourselves, possibly to others, but I think the crucial one is our honesty with ourselves. What maybe we need to grieve, what maybe we need to say, yeah, this is what I want. This is what I want to change. This is what I'm done doing. This is a boundary I want to set. There's just this clarity sometimes that rings through. So there's a calling forward whenever Queen of Swords comes in to just like take a moment, write it on a piece of paper, put it in a Word document, what have you. Go for a walk and think it. What do you want to say to yourself? What do you want to come through? Right? What boundaries do you want to set? What truths do you want to let move through your body? That's such a beautiful feeling, and it's one that's really liberating. And on the other hand, we have the Sun, which is the simplicity and joy of playing, and the simplicity and joy of just like being here in the present moment. And for me, what I think is that a lot of us, we need this Queen of Swords first to be able to enter into this Sun energy. We need moments where we just let ourselves be honest about ourselves in order to even begin to be in a playful state of mind. And this goes back to allowing emotions and truths and feelings to move through your body in an honest fashion so that we can illuminate all of that Capricorn goodness, all that play, all that sunshine. And this month it is kind of, as we move through Leo season and into Virgo season, there is an evolution that goes on with the energy and how it works with you. So I'll be really curious to see how that plays out. And just as a final reminder, remember, like, finding those moments that it's okay to be you the way that you are in this world right now, and just giving yourself the peace of not always pushing yourself to be more all the time. Have a beautiful August. Aquarius, hello, my beautiful friends. So, welcome to mirror season. That's what I always call the season that's opposing you. So we are in Leo season, your opposing sign. I happen to be a Leo, and I have this really strong love of Aquarian energy. I love our axis, and I love our conversations and the way we share. And, for me, when we have like the sun in an oppositional sign, we have Venus opposing you. We have a full moon in your sign as well this month. this is such an opportunity for us to just kind of get some fresh perspective, right? Because we're on the other end of the spectrum. So what I often find that this does is it helps us to calibrate and see our life with fresh eyes. And one of the things I notice is if you have an area of your life that's feeling particularly mysterious, unsolvable, maybe a little stuck, maybe a little stagnant, or just like in traction, this Leo season can actually be really, really helpful in getting insight and clarity. But the key with that, and I think Aquarians naturally have this, so I think this is something that you can play with, is to really open up your perspective. And I'm not saying you have a closed perspective, but the more you can practice widening your range of vision and letting, your physical side as well as your mental, spiritual side to open up a little bit, the more you're going to be able to see how things are moving and how to move things forward. So you're going to be noticing that theme coming up again and again. The other thing with Venus and the Sun moving through your opposing sign this month is that this is great for connecting and having really important, deep conversations and making deep connections and figuring out what it is going on in your relationship. So that's really beautiful. The final piece of the puzzle here is all of the fixed signs this month are getting a little hit of reassessment. So we have Mars, the North Node, and Uranus all in Taurus, squaring you, squaring Leo as well, but squaring you and challenging you to think about where you're putting your life force and how that's feeling for you, where you're putting your energy in the course of life. So you're going to be noticing that with the energy in Leo, with the energy in Taurus, kind of challenging you, asking you some deep questions. This is going to be a time of just reflection on what you want your course to be. When we get into Virgo season as well, this is your annual season, and we'll get into this again too in the September readings, but you're going to begin at the end of this month this is your annual release period. So releasing stagnant energy, letting go of old connections, just feeling any of those kind of stagnancies move away and move through. So in general, I think this month is about that. It's about moving stagnant energy. It's about opening up the field of vision. It's about reassessment. And it's about getting challenged a little bit to let go of old haunted house thinking. So, all the fun classics lined up for you. King of Pentacles. I like that energy a lot, actually. Two cards wanted to come out. The Devil and the Eight of Pentacles. Okay, we have a lot of grounded energy here, Aquarius. Like 3 cards that are very deeply tied to Earth symbolism. Very interesting. So this is such a great conversation. I'm excited right now. Okay. Here are 2 versions of grounding. One, we have the King of Pentacles. Now this to me is healthy grounding. This is about planting seeds, allowing those to grow over time, tending to them, feeling patient and centered. Taking our time, allowing the process to develop and open. The Devil is the kind of grounding that has to do with repetitive circular thinking, which at one time might have served us and at one time might have been really useful. But the Devil is often about how we get kind of enslaved to a certain version of the story. And for me, the Devil really represents the repetitive thinking that we develop. It's a natural brain function of living in these physical bodies. And so here's a challenge to you, Aquarius. Where are you grounding in healthy ways? As fixed signs, we often stick with things. We stick it out, which is one of the great qualities of fixed signs. However, what are we sticking to in the long run that's really slowly blossoming, and we can feel the energy lifting and getting lighter and more open? What are we sticking to that is starting to feel like a prison? So this is going to be a game of differentiation between these 2 things and feeling them out and feeling the quality of how they feel in our bodies. And that ties into the 7 of Pentacles. This is a card of reassessment. This is somebody who has been gardening for a little while. They've been working on digging up a patch of ground or planting something, and they are standing there in the middle of it thinking, should I continue this? Or should I pull back? Maybe it's time to let this go. So basically all of these cards are saying, this is a month where you may be kind of asking some questions about what you want to keep doing and what you definitely don't want to keep doing. And like I said, one of the best ways to explore that is to check how it feels in your body. Like really, and get honest with it, right? Like really let yourself hear when something just does not feel good in your body. I'm so curious to see what comes up for Aquarians this month. Hello, gorgeous, beautiful Pisces friends. Leo season, August, a very sensitive, transformational time of year, I think, in its own unique way. For you all, this is a time of how our evolutions through life, our circles and our turns through life as we spiral through life, at least as we move through Leo season. At the end of the month, we're going to be in your opposing sign of Virgo, and we're going to be exploring how you're expanding your vision. But the first 3 weeks of this month, as the sun moves through Leo, Venus moves through Leo, this is a time to think about repetitive thoughts, repetitive intrusive thoughts, repetitive storytelling. And while you are mutable water, which gives you a kind of freedom and flowiness, I know Pisces, and one of the things, I mean, I don't know all of you, and these are generalizations, so let's also say that. But one of the things I've noticed a lot with Pisces is that you all have had to develop a spiny exterior at times and a really sometimes tough inner critic to keep you safe in this world, because your Piscean energy is tied to all this other stuff. But then you had to figure out how to be here, and so this is a really great time of year to kind of look at that inner critic, look at the repetitive things that inner critic says. It's a great time to do some journaling practices around kind of just noticing and witnessing what that is saying to you, and also getting playful in creating some new thoughts and maybe playing with your inner champion, your inner sage, your inner wise one, and coming up with new questions you want to ask yourself about your creative process. Of course, as we move into Virgo season at the end of the month, we are going to start to notice a little bit more symbiosis with you, a little bit more about connection and seeing your life with fresh eyes. But this month is really about asking those new questions. And like I said, really seeing your inner critic fully, letting them be in the light a little bit, holding them, with loving kindness, but also curiosity, and just seeing them, putting them out in the light rather than letting them sit in the back of your mind, just saying stuff all day, heckling you all day long. So that's really going to be the core of this month for you in the energies that are moving through. Also, there's going to be a full moon in Aquarius. It's in your 12th spiritual house. So it's going to be highlighting also, how you want your spirit to come into this physical world. It's going to be a time of thinking about, really what that means and what that looks like to you, beyond what the inner critic has told you is right and wrong. Queen of Swords, honest truth teller. That is the element that's coming up. And the Hanged Man, I haven't seen the Hanged Man for a little while. I love these. So the Queen of Swords, her work really is essentially to tell the truth. Our inner critics, they're not lying because they're not innately malicious. They are trying to protect us, but they often say things that aren't the truth. So when we put that repetitive thought, those repetitive loops, those repetitive questions, those repetitive thoughts about like our security, our safety, our existence in the world into the light, the Queen of Swords can actually help us see with clarity what those voices are trying to do. And that is liberating. The Queen of Swords also is a boundary setter and is very forthright. So this can be great for our internal system. Sometimes we need that energy that comes in and says, hey, we're not doing that to ourselves anymore. And this can also be a great boundary setter in the world, in what you're doing. And I really need a sip of water. I'm getting like little frog in my throat. So the Queen of Swords is really, really great for getting clear on how we're going to treat ourselves and how we want to be treated by others. So I think that's a theme that's going to be coming up for you. Now, the Hanged Man is really interesting. This is the number 12. He's in the sign of Jupiter, which is actually a sign of expansion. And one of the things that's really cool about the Hanged Man energy is that this is about a flipped perspective, right? He's seeing everything upside down. He's seeing everything from a different perspective. And while so like if your inner critic is telling you you're never going to be safe, nothing's ever going to be right, you're not doing it right over and over again, right? That's one perspective. But the Hanged Man is looking at that upside down and saying, I see it inverse. I see it in this other way. So there's an invitation here. 1, to call out into the truth. 2, to see things flipped, to see things on their head, to explore what things look like when we don't assume those loops are true. We start to flip things and see from new perspectives. So I'm really curious to see what will come up for you, beautiful Pisces, as we move through August. So we are at the end of our journey together for this August. I will be back very soon, though, for our Virgo season chat, our Aquarius full moon, our Virgo new moon. There's a lot ahead, as well as I am planning on doing a lot that has to do with going into the darker season of the year. I'll be moving into that and moving through that, and some of the tools I use to deal with my haunted house and my fears in the darker weather when we really face into our true internal selves. I'm really looking forward to that. So I hope to see you for those. We'll see how this series continues. A lot of the advice and a lot of the things that came up in the readings today, of course, apply to me. I was thinking as I was talking through some of the points for each of the readings today, how I definitely need to heed many of those messages myself and reflect on them. There's a lot of unknown in my own creative process right now, a lot that I am needing to accept that I just don't understand how it's going to play out, including, what it's going to feel like as this channel keeps evolving. And as I keep coming home to myself instead of abandoning myself and ignoring those signals and those signs and those feelings that are feeling so real and intense for me as I'm changing shape and form. And learning to honor that and learning to honor the mystery of it. And I want to take you along on that journey, on the uncertainty of it, on the curiosity of it. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what keeps blossoming up and out this coming month. If you would like to be a part of my community, I would really love to see you over on Patreon. My patrons have changed my life, and I just want to thank all of them and just take a moment to say thank you, thank you, thank you. You can also find me on Instagram. And of course here, like I said, I want to take you on this very real and raw journey that I'm going through as I'm just deciding to be more just myself and make the things that I want to make and own that boundary, honestly, and be really proud of myself for just taking the time to be honest and open and to change and to let that be a central part of the work that I do and also my life, So I am so appreciative of you all who have hung out with me and shared in that. Your beautiful energy is so meaningful. So thank you so much. I hope you'll subscribe and stick around, and I'll see you very soon for our next chat.